I'm Chris Patel, and I'm the founder of Tales to Inspire. We are a social enterprise, a not-for-profit organisation that shares the people's stories of individuals to inspire others, whilst we're raising awareness on societal themes. And we have shared over the stories of over 150 individuals since November 2019, which has been an incredible journey. I'm just going to find out lots about who we are and what we've done via our website. Sorry, hopefully everyone can still hear me. Can find out loads with regards to our website and what we get up to. We do live events, we work in schools, we work in lots and lots of different areas. And today we have our third of our Talks to Inspire series, with the theme today being on adapting to circumstances. We have the amazing Sandie Roberts, and we also have Nana Marfo. We've had two others of the events. We call them power hours, between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. And our fourth one, our last one, is next Wednesday, and it's the power of the outdoors is the theme. And we'll be sending a little bit more information in the actual chat. But before any of that, I want to introduce our first speaker today. And our first speaker actually shared their story with us. I did a little bit of research here, Sandie. In April 2022, it feels like it was just yesterday, but it was April 2022 when you shared your story with us. And Sandie's started Search for Silver Linings and loads of incredible things and inspires so many people. But it's probably best hearing from Sandie sharing their story instead of me. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Sandie. And if you do have any questions, please feel free after Sandie talks. More than welcome to fire as many questions at Sandie as you'd like. And if we can't get them to Sandie, we'll send them afterwards with any after today's call if we don't have enough time. So Sandie, please take it away.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm Sandie. I am a white non-binary person. I've got silver streaked short hair with blue eyes, and I'm wearing a blue hoodie with a white t-shirt underneath. And I'm just sat in my office, and it's a blurred background, quite dark at the back. And my pronouns are they, them. So I just wanted to just prefix what I'm going to say. I did try to learn what I'm going to say today, but my brain isn't functioning, and part of my disability is cognitive malfunctioning, shall we call it? That's the way I should frame it. And so it's just not working today. So I'm going to read it for you, and hopefully that won't change how it comes across for you, and hopefully you'll still enjoy it. So hopefully it will work okay. So hello, let me introduce myself to you. Not this me though. Let me take you back to Sandie from 20 years ago. Okay, I've just gotten over another spinal surgery. I'm living with crippling pain every day. I'm on so many painkillers that at one point when I tried to collect my child from school, they wouldn't let her come with me because they thought I was drunk. Often I'm overcome with fatigue. In fact, I'm sometimes so tired when I'm driving that I have to pull over and lay my head against the window to sleep because it's not safe to drive. I get stranded when I'm out and I have to sit on the pavement because the pain is so bad I can't walk. So I just sit and wait until I've got the strength to walk back to my car. Don't even mention a mobility aid to me because I'll probably bite your head off. But it's okay, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong, not really. I mean, I can still walk most of the time. I will not be in a wheelchair now or in the future. I don't care what the doctors say. I am not a failure. I'm not weak. What was that? Disabled? That's a terrible word. That will not be the life for me. I'm fine, really. Okay, we've had enough of that. That Sandie was so unhappy. They could never keep up with the world. They never fit in. No matter what they did or how hard they tried, it never quite worked out. But this Sandie identifies proudly as a disabled queer person. Thankfully, this Sandie now understands that ableism was running wild through my veins back then. This Sandie understands it's the world that needs fixing, not me. It's quite the 180 shift, And you're probably wondering how the hell that happened. Well, I hope you are, because I'm going to tell you anyway. There comes a time in some people's lives when they have a decision to make. Carry on down a path that so far has led you to darkness and misery, or start examining your own thoughts, behaviours, and beliefs to see how they might have brought you there, to see what changes you can make to lift yourself out of the darkness. I'd spent the last 20 years in denial, disconnecting from my body, ignoring every SOS signal it sent, pushing it to the edges of tolerance and then some. In my mind, if I could still crawl, then I could still work. I would routinely spend 12 or more hours at work and have no energy left to eat. And that felt normal. I didn't feel entitled to rest. Let me just repeat that. I didn't feel entitled to rest my own body, a body that was screaming at me that it was in danger for years. No prizes for guessing that I got myself into a bit of a pickle. In 2019, I had a stroke. And I was at work, of course. I then lost my job. They said there were no accommodations they could make as my health was so bad, although we never even discussed it. Nothing to do with the fact that it was on the second floor and there was no lift and I was a full-time wheelchair user by then. Funny that. My family was far away. I felt like I had no friends. I wasn't earning, so I didn't feel like I could provide for my family. I wasn't able to do much for myself, so I felt like I couldn't look after my family. My body had changed significantly due to medication and lack of exercise, so I didn't even recognise my reflection in the mirror. My cognitive function was severely impacted, and I didn't feel I could contribute to conversations either. In fact, all the measures of success that I'd used to define myself were gone. I began to feel disconnected and dark, and I lost all sense of who I was. And worst of all, I felt utterly worthless. One morning, I found myself on the bedroom floor at the lowest of lows. I felt hollow and fragile, like an empty shell made of cloud, so thin that a strong gust of wind could have blown me away. As I lay there feeling invisible, pointless, and worthless, I waited to fade out of existence. But that didn't happen. Instead, I tuned into my breath. That was the only truth I could find in that moment. I was still breathing. And it occurred to me that I may have lost a lot, but I still had the gift of breath. Instead of feeling broken in that moment, I felt lucky. I remember thinking, I may not have much, but I still had my life force. I was still here, despite everything. I was lucky enough to still be breathing, still be here, and from nowhere came a strength that settled into the hollowness. Don't waste it. I don't know where I found the strength to ask myself the question that changed everything. A tiny whisper of a question. Do I want to just stay here, risk disappearing and wasting this precious gift of breath? Or could I rebuild myself from the inside out? That was the beginning of everything else. An opportunity in the hollowness, an opportunity to rebuild Sandie 2.0. Not based on what society says is important, but based on things that were so important and true that they would ground me deep into the earth and create such a solid core that nothing could ever knock me. What would that be like? And from that question grew a desire to become a stronger, bolder, and more confident, more authentic version of myself than I'd ever been before. What followed has been a prolonged period of unlearning and deconditioning, filling the gaps with new information that's bolstered me. I had to understand myself. Until I know where I've come from, I don't know where I want to go. Why had I resisted my own reality for so long? Why couldn't I hear my own body talking to me? What had really scared me about being disabled? Spoiler alert here, living in an inaccessible ableist world is the answer. I reached out to the disabled community and I found a bunch of wonderful humans. I found that sharing my own experiences helped so many others and was really cathartic for me too. But one thing that helped me adapt to my circumstances more than anything else, the most important thing, acceptance. Until I could accept where I was, I couldn't adapt to it. I was living in denial, and that's going to cause tension in anyone's life. But reaching a state of acceptance is easier said than done. I mean, it took me decades. It's hard to understand the reasons why we struggle to accept our situation, or we might know those reasons and then discover they're too difficult to tackle. Then what do we do? I think the first step for me came with recognizing what was happening, being honest with myself. For so long, I couldn't even do that. Even thinking about it was far too scary. I just put it in a box and I locked it away. What I didn't realize was that locked box was poisoning me and doing me no favors at all. But simply acknowledging what was happening, just having that honest reflection was enough to begin the healing. And something I learned in therapy was that feelings can't hurt me. They hurt, but they don't damage me. That was an absolute revelation. I could allow myself to feel in a way that was safe for me to do so. I discovered that feelings don't go on forever, even though they feel like they might. They thankfully stop at some point. I can traverse difficult emotions and situations with love and kindness in order to heal. I didn't know any of this when I was growing up. Growing up. Okay, now is a good time to talk about resilience. This is a little bit controversial, but Krish, you asked me here to give my viewpoint, not Google's, so here we go. If you've been told you're resilient, it's most likely because you've been through some really shitty stuff. And I want you to give yourself a really loving embrace if that's the case, and thank yourself for taking care of you through the most difficult of times and surviving. Resilience is not really a badge of honor, it's a scar, something we can be glad of, but I don't really want to encourage the world to aspire to be resilient. The only way we develop that thick skin is through exposure to shitty experiences that we had no choice but to survive. I would much rather teach strong boundaries, self-love, empathy, courage, kindness. Be glad you have resilience, but let's not, as a society, glamorize it, celebrate it, because the only way you can develop it is by going through awful shit that pushes you to your limits, past it, repeatedly. I don't wish that for anyone. I'm resilient as hell, and I'd much rather have been spared those experiences that have made me so. I'm okay with celebrating survival, not so much resilience. It's been 5 years since that moment on the bedroom floor. Every day, I feel my purpose growing stronger and clearer. I'm a full-time wheelchair user, and proudly so. I have my own business. You can often find me working in my pajamas at my desk, or probably in bed, actually. #disabled entrepreneur. I'm a fierce advocate for the disabled and queer communities. I've appeared on TV and radio many times and rolled down the catwalk at London Fashion Week, not once, but twice. And I've even appeared in British Vogue. I never thought I'd say those words. And I'm about to launch a new business supporting the disabled community in becoming their most confident selves. I think you could say, I'm disabled and loving it. Any work that needs doing is firmly directed towards society and the world we live in. I certainly don't need fixing. But back to adapting to circumstances. I chose not to centre on resilience or even survival. I took my lowest moment as an opportunity to ask myself, who do I want to be in this life that I have? I certainly didn't want to go back to who I was in the before times. I was so unhappy, so disconnected to myself. Here was an opportunity to build an authentic life that's just the way I wanted it. Now I see myself as an empty vessel waiting to be filled. I am in control. I can choose what my future looks like. Why not fill myself up with all the glorious, colourful, sparkly things that make me happy, that create solid foundations that no one, no matter what I go through, can take away. Nothing stays the same in life, even if we want it to. And sometimes we get thrown a massive curveball. Of course, we can resist that change, but it's the distance between where we are and where we want to be, the gap between these two things. That's where unhappiness lives. For so long, I looked at the change in my circumstances as what had been taken away from me, and that led me down a very dark path until the day I chose to look at it as an opportunity to refine myself. It might not be the easiest option, but I'm no longer a mere wisp of a thing, waiting for a gust of wind to blow me out of existence. Now I'm rooted into the ground, solid and sure. Storms will come, but they will not disturb the inner core of who I am and what I have to offer this world. I am Sandie, and I know who I am now. I'm a disabled, queer, non-binary human here to help as many people as I possibly can. There's been a lot of changes that I've had to adapt to, and acceptance has been the key to it all. It isn't always easy being me, but it is authentic and it is exciting. And I don't think that's too bad a pivot from a fragile cloud, scared they might disappear. Thank you.
Wow, Sandie, thank you so much. Wow, just wow. Sometimes just speechless, and not very often. But for you to share such your authentic self so much, I just want to first of all say thank you. I think it's easy to to go at 1,000 miles an hour and try and live life as fast as possible, but just to acknowledge you as you. Thank you so much for being you. Wow, you're so cool. I'm actually going to open it up to the room, if that's okay with you, Sandie. Just to give people a heads up, if you have any questions for Sandie, you are more than welcome to write it into the chat function on the Zoom, or if you would prefer to unmute yourself, just put your hand up or use one of the reaction buttons if you'd like, or just unmute yourself. And if you'd like to ask Sandie a question, you're more than welcome to. Sandie's hopefully going to stay on after Nana speaks as well, but just in case Sandie doesn't, then that's okay as well. So you've got the opportunity now. So I'm just going to read, Sandie, some of the comments here. I've got very, very powerful. I've got wow, lots of wows. You're a light in the world. Wow, Sandie, thank you so much for sharing your story. You're incredible, powerful stuff. Thanks, Sandie. Yeah, just lots of great comments. Is there any questions from anyone anyone in the room that they have for Sandie?
I just can see that Azim put here, systems should be resilient so people don't have to be. I really love that.
Yeah, I love that. And your take on resilience is such a brilliant take as well. Yeah, which actually lots of people, resilience is one of those plug words at the moment. It's one of those words that everyone's like jumps on the bandwagon. It's a bit like there's certain words that everyone jumps in, and that's one of them. So for you to give that, I can see why you said this might be controversial, but yeah, I agree completely. I've got a few questions, well, for you then, Sandie, just whilst if we have a little bit of time as well. You talked about filling in the gaps, the learnings that you had to unlearn, and my question to you is, how did you go about that? And is there any particular source or content or practice that you did that supported you in unlearning to then learn again?
So, I mean, I've read some books. A lot of it came from joining different communities. So, both on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn as well. Going to different seminars at places like NADEX, and the new one was Disability Expo that's just started. And just joining in the conversations around what it means to live as a disabled person in this world. That was the biggest thing, finding out that a lot of the things that I thought were me were actually just the world that I was living in. And that was the case of unlearning. So hearing people, first of all, you find people that you respect, and then you get to, you find a voice that you respect, and you trust that voice. And then when they say something, you think, God, actually, I didn't even know I was doing that. I was blaming myself for that, or I was thinking this about myself, and now I don't. That's completely turned it on its head. Even simple things like the term gaslighting, medical gaslighting, I didn't know that was a thing. And so I was finding myself feeling very anxious about appointments and blaming myself for that, when it's not my fault at all. It's because of things that have happened to me since I was a child. And when you're blaming yourself for something, and it's not your fault, you internalize that. And what happens then is those feelings and emotions, they'll come out in your body physically at some point, even if it's through anxiety. We all know that, if you're anxious, you might get an upset stomach or something. That's the most easiest way to explain people about that mind-body connection. But there's many other ways that it can come through. So once you free yourself of, I'm just using this as an example, but once you free yourself of blaming yourself for those emotions, physically, you can then free yourself of some of the symptoms that you're feeling as well. And you can be empowered by that. You can go into an appointment, or you can go into a situation feeling empowered, feeling this is who I am. I don't need to take on the responsibility of feeling guilt, or I don't need to take on the responsibility of feeling whatever that thing is. So it's educating yourself in the truth of your situation, but you can't do that until you've accepted where you are. Does that make sense? If you're constantly denying the reality of where you are, you can't unlearn things, or you can't bring in new information. There's going to be that disconnect. There's going to be that gap between where you are and where you think you are. And there's all this space for the bad stuff to happen, that tension. And you're never going to be settled, and you're never going to be feeling control of your life, because it is out of control, because you think you're over here, but actually you're actually over here, and it's all going on over here. It'd be like trying to drive your car with a steering wheel that's 20 meters long. You're never going to feel in control.
Yeah, that's exactly. I love it. I love your metaphors. You connect them with great metaphors, so then I can actually visualize it. Amazing. Thank you, Sandie. I've got a question from Dom in the room, who has said that he'd like to ask the next question. So Dom, please take it away.
Hi, Sandie. That was actually so powerful. Thank you so much for that. There's a bit I wrote down. I actually got goosebumps. It was like, there's a time in your life when the decision to make, you got to evaluate yourself and thoughts and get rid of this negative behavior. That was very powerful. And also that feelings can't damage. That was great. So you said part of your resilience kind of like definition was about self-love. Is there any like self-love practices you do regularly?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I could fill up a whole day of that. So many. I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of journaling. And I write myself love notes, and I will speak to myself. I do mirror work as well. That's really, really powerful. I think self-talking is one of the first ones that I did. I noticed that I was speaking to myself in a way that I wouldn't speak to my family or my friends. And just noticing is the very first step. Just noticing that you're doing it, and then trying to catch yourself, and then retracting from it. Okay, I've heard myself say that. I'm going to choose to replace that statement with a conscious effort to use a different one. And then eventually, you know, that becomes second nature. So that's the first one. But mirror work is really powerful. It's very challenging when you're not used to it. I remember the first time I looked in the mirror into my own eyes, like you would a loved one, or a lover or something, and tried to tell myself that I loved myself. I felt so squirmy. I couldn't do it at all. It was just awful. And now I can gaze into my own eyes and say all these wonderful things about what an incredible person I am, how powerful I am, how kind I am, how strong I am, how, you know, all these things. And I'll often combine things. So if I'm having an ice shower, I'll say lots of powerful things to myself at that time as well, whilst visualizing myself marching through a mountain like Gandalf.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sandie. Right, I see that we've got a few comments. Got one. I love the concept of the mirror work, and then one comment here on resilience reminds me. Your comment on resilience, Sandie, reminds me of people's commitments and how well we cope with situations such as chronic illness or other challenging life events, as if we're somehow coping well with them because we have a particular strength, rather than coping well with them because we have no choice but to keep going in order to survive and keep putting on. Keep going on foot on the other each day. As you've mentioned, the chronic illness disability community is a hugely supportive place and enables people to recognize that they're not alone in things that they're feeling and facing. That's really, really special. Thank you for your comments as well on that in the chat function. I've got one question from Azima before we move on to Nana's got one question here, and the question is, if there was one law you could change or introduce to improve accessibility, what would it be?
It might not be the most obvious to a lot of people, but stop making us have to use the back entrance. It's like segregation, isn't it? Like, I don't want to have to do it. I don't want to use a different entrance. I want to use the same entrance as everybody else. As far as accessibility goes. Make the grand entrance where everyone gets to experience this, you know, the wonderful grandeur of your restaurant or whatever. I don't want to go around the back where the bins are and through the kitchen. That's not the entrance I want when I'm paying, you know, 50 quid a head or whatever. So regarding accessibility, that would be it.
Thank you for sharing, Sandie. I think it's, once again, it's raising awareness. It's raising awareness of this and having these dialogues like we have. So, Sandie, whether you're on later on or not, I just want to say a huge thank you once again. You're amazing. If people want to find out about you, where can they find out about you?
I'm on Instagram mostly. I am on TikTok as well, but mostly on Instagram. It's at the real silver linings. And that's where you can probably find me most of the time. Amazing. Thank you so much, Sandie. You're amazing. So cool. So on to the rest of the evening now. So we've had the amazing Sandie. So good luck, Nana, following that up, mate. So I'm gonna bring you, Nana, to the forefront here. And so for everyone who's here today, Nana is one of our ambassadors who shared his story. When did he share his story? August the 3rd, 2021. It feels like just yesterday that we shared and had the pleasure of getting to meet Nana and sharing his story. I've seen a private message that's come through to me that's asked, where can you find these stories? I'll put a link into the chat where you can find all of our stories. They go onto our website, but also onto our podcast, our YouTube channel, and we do live in-person events and online events like so. But I'll put them onto the chat function for you. But
Nana's an incredible human, just so cool, and stands up for so many individuals. But as I did with Sandie, I'm not going to tell Nana's story. I'm going to let Nana tell his story. So, Nana, please take it away, mate.
I am Nana, a black bearded man with a glasses on, wearing a peach top. Where do I begin? So, born 6 months premature, 26 weeks to be exact. Weighed a bag of sugar. Parents came from Africa. Didn't have a clue of how to manage a child who was so tiny, so fragile. More or less didn't have a voice, born with a narrow airway. So you can imagine giving birth to your child and then your child's having to go into surgery. Why? Because a part of their key organ didn't develop with them. And that's what he needs to voice or speak. Took 2 years for me to come out of hospital. I needed to get a bit bigger. I needed to get a bit stronger. It was a traumatic time for my mother. It was a traumatic time for my father as well. And even just to come into community, my condition in the 80s, I'm showing my age, was one of those conditions that the local authority at the time weren't quite equipped to handle. So even bringing me home was an issue in itself. My mum was bombarded with a lot of community nurses at the time. She hadn't even wrapped her own head around having a premature child with a tracheostomy. And growing up, I was in and out of hospital. From what I heard, when I was even born, I was in intensive care. So I was on my way out. I was on my way out in terms of I died a couple of times, apparently. So even how I'm here is amazing. Grew up, and as you know, every child needs to have an education or start forming their words. I mean, with me, there was a lot going on. And when I say that, I had speech therapy to develop my voice. And I was trying to find myself a primary school to develop my social skills and understand how to communicate with other children of the likeness to me. Primary school was a doddle. Nursery was a doddle. I didn't really know I had a disability. Didn't know I was different from others. I think it hit me when I got to year 6, where I started to get bullied. And during playtime, when the bell would go, I'd be told, oh, no, you can't go out. You've got to stay in. Your friends can go out, but you can't. So it started to get frustrating. I started to show my anger through screaming with the little voice that I had, kicking stuff around. And it got to a point where the teachers were like, right, we need to bring his parents in. Someone needs to tell him what's wrong because he doesn't know what's going on. So both parents were brought in, and it was explained that it was their decision to have me indoors due to the severe chest infections that I could get due to having an open respiratory condition. And I still didn't get it. I just thought, okay, I've got to be indoors because I get sick. I then had the option when I got to about 8 or 9. the consultants thought, okay, he's growing up, he's got time, his airway will probably get stronger. They asked my parents if they could take out my tube and watch me develop. My tube was taken out in 92. I was normal for a long period of time. Well, society's normal of what normal is. And then I had the wonderful opportunity of going to Ghana. I thought I went on holiday, but I went there to stay. Stayed there for 5 years. I did have some type of indication that things were crashing when I was out there, because my breathing started to get louder. I started to have a lot of headaches growing up. And then when I hit 14, I started to have severe migraines. Migraines to the point where I could feel the floor underneath me rotating. And it felt like the whole world around me was moving. So my father being my father, he didn't really pay attention to the signs. A relative of my mother's came to visit and realized that I lost a lot of weight. And during the time I lost a lot of weight, a phone call was made to my mum by my mum's relative, and was told, you need to go and get your son because he's losing a lot of weight. He's not his normal self. There's something wrong with him. I was flown back in 97, went straight to Great Ormond Street. And when my childhood consultant saw me, she nearly fell off her chair. When they done extensive research into my symptoms, they found out there was lack of oxygen going to my head. So if you remember before, I just said I felt the whole world spinning when I was having headaches when I was in Ghana. It was due to lack of oxygen. Had I stayed in Ghana an extra month, I probably wouldn't be here today. I probably wouldn't reach the age I'm at today, which is 40. So at the age of 15, they had to reconstruct my airway. I had to battle my teenage years of understanding who I was as a person, dealing with a tube in my neck. And you know, teenagers can be horrible. I had a lot of stuff said about me. I had people not really want to come near me because they thought having a tracheostomy tube was contagious. So I went through a lot. And I think there's one thing that I haven't mentioned all throughout this story. I never spoke. And when I say I never spoke, because I had a trachea, I was embarrassed to speak. So people would say all types of stuff about me, and I wouldn't really respond. People would ask, well, a minority of people would ask my opinion, and I wouldn't really give an opinion. I think where my voice came into play is when I hit 24. I got my first job, and I got discriminated against. And I think for all the years I hadn't spoken, the frustration just came out in one. I was being discriminated on because of my own disability. I needed extra time to manage my health, and I wasn't being given those adjustments. So I took my employer to a tribunal. I got fed up of people trampling over me. And this time someone was going to hear me speak. Bearing in mind, ironically, my disability is to do with my voice. The tribunal worked out. My voice was heard. I was given the adjustments I needed. And it didn't stop there. I moved over to another public sector body as a government official. And I was discriminated on again. And this time it was for the same thing. But it was a mixture of personal dislike and finding ways to walk me out the door. And I don't know where I got the fight, I think it's from my mother, to question, challenge. So I never tried doing all this time because this time a manager was taking a personal dislike to me, but using my condition to say I was incompetent for my job. And it was a 4-year stretch. I took 2 years of abuse without saying nothing. And then in my 3rd and 4th year, I decided enough was enough. I wrote an article which blew up, went viral, which then led me onto the BBC on Eddie Nestor's Drive Time show, speaking about disability, speaking about the scrutiny and the lack of support from central government and how employers treated people with disabilities. And it was a roller coaster from then. I got invited to the National Diversity Awards, talking about my experience being born premature, living with a permanent tracheostomy tube, and just sharing my story of having a voice and using it adequately. A lot of us have voices but tend not to use it appropriately. I'm here to tell you that I nearly didn't have a voice. I nearly lost my voice completely in 2010. So in 97, my neck got reopened. In 2010, my neck re-shrank. So I nearly lost it in my mid-20s permanently. So I was lucky to revive it. It's not as strong as it used to be when they reopened it, but I think what I'm here to tell you tonight is I've made every effort to make sure my voice is heard in every aspect of society, enabling people to understand that whatever your barrier is, whatever your condition is, use your voice to be heard. I know it's cliche when I say make your voice be heard, but in my instance, it's a reality for me. You know, I was unfortunate to be born with a narrow airway. I was fortunate to walk through this life because I'll probably be a different person if I didn't. And what's kept me resilient is that I refuse to have another version of myself walking around who doesn't talk, who accepts abuse, and doesn't want to voice their opinions. There's a lot of young people coming up with similar conditions to myself who I want to see a different version of myself in society. And not just even that, from the young to the old, disability shouldn't be your disability. I hate using that word. I tend to say unique ability is not your prisoner. It's the society and the community you live in and the people around you who make you a prisoner of your own barrier. And I refuse that to continue. And I refuse to let community imprison me with my unique way of talking. I hope you've enjoyed what I've said. And if you've got questions, I'd love to answer them. Thank you.
Nana, thank you so much, mate. Got a feeling that everyone knows that we can't, wherever Nana goes now, he knows that he's heard. Just honestly, incredible human. Thank you so much for sharing the story, mate. And wow, I know I've already got a few questions that have come through for you, Nana. Just looking at a few of the comments here as well, Nana, just to give you the heads up that glad you found your voice. Thank you so much for sharing, so powerful. One of the questions that I've got asked here is, how hard was it for you to find your first job?
This is where I feel like an imposter in the disability community. Because I was so eager to be heard, finding a job for me wasn't as difficult as it is for people with complex or unique disabilities. My first job that made me confident to speak out you're gonna laugh, all of you, is phones for you. I was a salesman. So I had to learn to have the gift of the gab. And I think that spurred me on to work as a public sector worker. And I think it also turns me around to want to help others. So in a nutshell, and I've gone long-winded to answer the question, but I didn't have difficulties as other people may.
I do. That you brought a blast from the past, Nana. Phones for you. I remember those people going around. I remember those annoying salespeople. Amazing. We've got another question, Nana here. Nana, hi Nana, well done. Question: when do you feel your voice was the loudest, and how can we support you to make it louder?
I think when I felt my voice was the loudest, when I had the BBC approach me to do a podcast, and when I had my first TED Talk. I think that's when I realized that people were actually listening to me. So I wasn't this fragile baby that was born in Guy's Hospital in the 80s who had a narrow airway. My airway still narrow, but my voice was making a powerful beat that everyone was listening to. How can you help me? Oh, share the good words. Share the good words and just keep on elevating others who you can see that they've got the fight in them. They've got that light behind their eyes. Just make it a bit brighter. That's how you can support me.
Amazing. And in that case, then, Nana, how do people find out about you?
Yeah, I'm all over the place. Oh, okay, so I'm on Instagram at Mr_unique_voice. And it's the same handle for Facebook. It's the same handle for LinkedIn. And it's the same handle for TikTok.
Amazing. I've actually I've just been messaged a direct message there asking, because Sandie's still in the room. Sandie, would you be okay to bring you forward as well? Because we've got a few questions coming through. So I'm just going to bring Sandie in just to let people know. I've got a few questions as well. How do people find out more? I'm actually going to put the Tales from Inspiring newsletter link into the chat right now, so people can sign up to our newsletter and find out more about who we are. Our incredible ambassadors like Nana and like Sandie, and the amazing work that we do. One of the questions that I've just been asked actually is from you, Sandie, which has come through great, and it's for you, Nana. What has been your favourite time you used your voice?
My favourite time is when I went into a SEND school and I inspired a younger, brilliant, powerful group of children who were also going through their own struggles of having SEND needs. And for them to realize that I was just like them once upon a time, and I made it to where I am today. Just to see the smile on their face, to realize that they could go further in life and be an individual who's recognized by people. It warmed my heart. So yeah, I think that was my proudest moment.
That's amazing. And there's something, I mean, all of us here have had the opportunity to speak to probably thousands of people. So us three, I mean, the amount of people we've touched and connected with is probably, who knows how many people that is. But there's something really powerful when you see it in person, and that potential, just those sparks being ignited, you know, it's really special. One of the questions I've got here is, both of you have talked about the community that you are part of. It all sounds very great. However, what are some of the tougher things that you found about the community? And have you had any experiences of negativity within the community? So that can go to whoever would like to go first and answer that.
I'd say Sandie, go first.
Thanks. On the whole, it's, if we're talking about the disability community, on the whole, it's been a very supportive and good experience for me. Sometimes there can be the tendency to focus on negative experiences. And whilst I'm not someone who believes in toxic positivity, and if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's this focusing on always seeing the positive to the detriment of our mental or physical health and ignoring the reality. I don't believe in doing that. I also don't believe in fixating or dwelling on the negative too much. I believe in accepting it to a point of, or kind of existing in it to the point where, only to the point where it can be helpful. And then we need to move away from it. Then we need to, okay, what can we learn from this, and how can we use it to fuel ourselves for change, or how can we use it to move ourselves out of it? And sometimes not everyone has that way of thinking. There's a tendency, because a lot of the time the outside world doesn't listen to the disabled community, and you can find that people are just so tired of that they just are stuck within this negative narrative of, this is happening to me, this is happening to me, and that can be difficult. So I have found that I choose to remove myself from that, because you can't change people if they don't want to hear what you have to say. You can give your opinion, you can give what you can, what you can offer to people, but if they don't want to accept it, then that's fine. You then have to kind of remove yourself from it, and that's what I would say. That's the negative. I would say, yeah.
Thanks, Sandie. Thank you. I'm just conscious of the time. We've got 3 minutes. Nana, have you got an answer towards that question around the community and more of the tougher things that may have come from it?
Community, I think for me, when I first started out in my advocacy, I thought I could change the world. I thought I could change everyone. And then the little birdie on my shoulder, which is being my mum, told me, listen, you're not going to change everyone. Not everyone understands disability. If you can change 1% of people in your community, that's a job well done. If it's 2 people you can change, that's a job well done. So I think I've come to a crossroad in my life where I'm like, if you want the help, I'll give you the help. I'll inspire you. And I don't dwell on someone not understanding me, because I understand everyone goes through a different process of understanding. Everyone goes through a different process of learning. So positives, being able to change at least 2 or 3 people, and the rest follow. An example I can give is when I first started out, I had a lady who didn't quite understand why I was doing Facebook Lives. Ridiculed me through Facebook chat, said I claim disability benefit, why am I there trying to claim sympathy? I carried on. I didn't really engage in the negativity. And let's just say a couple of months down the line, she wrote me a personal message saying she was naive. She'd been following me throughout the time she made that statement, and she'd come to understand why I was fighting my cause. So I think for me, it's continuing the good word is my positivity.
Amazing, thank you, Nana. And that really, I've sorry to say, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've five questions, but we've got no time. So what I'm going to do, to anyone who's asked a question, you're going to receive an email tomorrow. That email is going to come from me, and it's going to have basically Tales to Inspire's contact is any questions that you have. It'll also have the social media links to Nana and to Sandie. And please feel free either to forward those questions onto them, or if you forward them onto me, I'm more than happy to ask Nana or Sandie those questions to them, and so you can get the answer to the question that you have asked. And if you've got more interest in anything that we're doing, we've obviously got Nana's social media, we've got Sandie's social media. The broader range of this is we raise awareness on so many different societal topics and areas with Tales to Inspire. Please do sign up to our newsletter and check out us on our website, or listen to us on our podcast, or watch our YouTube videos, or whatever that is, and come to our live events, and connect us to your workplace if you want to hear more of our ambassadors in the workplace. We've got so much going on. I've also put our next live event, the link to that, for next Wednesday at 7 till 8 p.m. in the chat as well, on the power of the outdoors, which will round up the 4 episodes of the Talks to Inspire series that we've had. But to Nana, to Sandie, I want to say a huge thank you. The comments prove this, that you just are amazing humans, absolutely incredible people. There's comments coming through now saying absolutely incredible. So thank you so much. You don't need to hear it from me. You are amazing. And thank you to everyone who's joined today. And yes, let's take care, and we will see you soon. So thank you, Sandie. Thank you, Nana. And thank you, everyone, for coming. Take care.
Thank you.